Hey folks, I'm Alex Bazanson.
And I'm Tim Chapin with the Pizza Boys. As you can see, we're still quarantined in our houses, still unable to get out and enjoy some pizza. So we're going to talk about it tonight on Zoom. Tonight, our guest is Kerry Byrne. Kerry is from Quincy. You probably know his Facebook group. Hell, you're probably a member. There's 14,000 of them right now. But South Shore Bar Pizza Social Club is the name of his Facebook group. If you're not a member, look that up. And he talks about all things bar pizza, and everybody shares hints and advice. Mostly it's been lately about how to make it on your own, since we can't get it out. He's also a former food critic for the Boston Herald and a restaurant consultant. Kerry, welcome.
Hey guys, great to be on with you, Alex, Tim. This is awesome, and thanks for having me on.
So you grew up in Wollaston, so obviously the alumni was part of your life.
Well, first of all, let me correct that. I grew up in Adams Shore.
Okay.
Not Wollaston. You can tell because I don't have a low-sloping cranium that I'm not a Wollaston boy. But I did live right behind the alumni for 20 years. And, the alumni is one of the kind of the original bar pizza joints. They probably begin in Brockton. But South Shore Bar Pizza is kind of a really cool thing. If you grew up in the South Shore, most of us grew up, obviously, Byzantium, you're not Irish, I don't think. But we kind of grew up with this old school working class blue collar diet, and we didn't have a lot of fancy food. But what we had on Friday nights was bar pizza, and most of us didn't know, and I didn't know until I was a food writer, that South Shore Bar Pizza is a thing. It's a thing. You only get it south of Boston. You get it in the working class bars, dive bars, blue collar taverns south of Boston. And the alumni is one of the kind of the late great alumni, as they call it, is one of the hallowed halls of South Shore Bar Pizza.
Well, I remember my sister and I are huge Bruins fans.
Yep.
So we always looked for Frosty's Mustang when we went by there. You might be too young to remember Frosty Forrestal. He was the trainer for the Bruins back in the Bobby Orr days. As a matter of fact, Bobby Orr took him in when he got sick towards the end of his life. But I remember stopping there. We'd wait in the car. My father would go in and have a couple of beers and bring the pizza out, and we'd go home. And that was my first bar pizza. As a kid, was from the alumni. So,
well, I wrote it so I was at the alumni the night it closed. I think it was about 5, 6, 7 years ago. I forget the exact, but I was still at the Boston Herald at the time, and I lived behind the alumni, but I didn't hang out there much. It wasn't my place. I had my own bars, right? But I never thought I'd miss it, Alex, until it closed. Yeah. It was one of those places you never realize. So I wrote you can probably still Google it, Kerry Byrne, Boston Herald Alumni Pizza. I have it on kerrybyrne.com. If you go to kerrybyrne.com, my own website, I reposted it recently. But a tribute to the alumni. And it was really one of those places that the community gathered around. And I never thought I'd appreciate it until it closed. And great pizza, great old neighborhood. But what I mentioned as a Bruins fan, Alex, I mentioned you would go there to watch Stan Jonathan beat the crap out of a bunch of Canadians on a Tuesday night in the winter, and that was one of the great parts. And
it was
games there and things like that, and it was a lot of fun.
Obviously, as I got older, I was allowed in there, and we had a few beers in there in my time.
Yeah.
I noticed recently.
One of the things about bar pizza joints is it's not only that they make this classic, this thing that we only have in the South Shore, this South Shore Bar Pizza, but usually they're neighborhood institutions. They're places that have been around for decades. Right. And the alumni was one of those centers of the community where, there was the guy who owned it at the end was Tommy Bellotti.
Right.
And Tommy, there used to be a nightclub in Quincy called Chevy's. I worked for Tommy back in the 80s at Chevy's nightclub, making pizza, ironically.
Down there in the parking way.
Yeah, down in the parking way. And, but, and Tommy Bellotti, his dad was the Attorney General, Francis Bellotti. So, and his brother, Mike Bellotti, is a great guy, was the sheriff. And they were a well-connected family. And they were great. They're great people. They're still great people. But it was kind of a connected place, a clubby place. And the name alone, the alumni, meant that it was kind of a clubby neighborhood gathering spot. And like I said, Alex, I never thought I'd miss it till it was gone. Yeah. And it's unfortunate it's gone. But at least alumni, I don't know if you know this, but alumni pizza is back.
It is. I heard that. I saw you did an interview with, what's his name, Steve Player?
Steve Player, yeah.
I watched that interview last night. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so your viewers and listeners who don't know, I had never met Steve Player, actually, but funny because me and him know all the same people. Steve started making, his dad owned the alumni back in the day. I think his dad opened the alumni in like 1960, 63, somewhere in the early 60s. Steve started making pizza at the alumni in 1971, okay? Today he works at the Next Page Cafe in Weymouth. And for those who aren't totally familiar with South Shore Bar Pizza, within South Shore Bar Pizza, there are different regional varieties. And in the northern South Shore, we're talking Quincy, we're talking Braintree, we're talking Weymouth, Braintree Brew House, Alumni in Weymouth, Next Page in Weymouth, Rags and Alumni in Quincy Point. These places all still make alumni-style bar pizza, okay? It's different than kind of the other bar pizzas. But Steve, now at the Next Page, he's made over 3 million bar pizzas in his day. Right. And I never met him, which is funny because we know all the same people. But I interviewed him the other day. If you go to the South Shore Bar Pizza Social Club on Facebook, you can see the interview with him. But it's an amazing, because now, as we mentioned off camera, Alex, so many people now are trying to make South Shore Bar Pizza at home. So we interviewed him because this guy has all the secrets to how to make real South Shore Bar Pizza at home. And it's just pretty cool having met a guy who's made over 3 million bar pizzas at home. At work. It's amazing.
So, Tim, what do you got?
Kerry, the thing I was reading up on, it fascinates me, is the history. You link the history of South Shore Bar Pizza to an old trolley trail, an old trolley run from Quincy to Brockton. Put that together for us.
Yeah. So as we know it, and this is a little bit disputed, but not totally disputed, but widely considered, Cape Cod Cafe in Brockton, in the middle of Brockton, invented South Shore Bar Pizza after World War II, okay? That may or may not be true, but there's not much evidence against it, but some old-timers dispute it. But for the sake of argument, Cape Cod Cafe after World War II in Brockton invented South Shore Bar Pizza. Well, I used to coach football at Quincy High School, and I remember the old-timers telling me they used to take the trolleys from Quincy Center to Brockton for the football games. When Brockton played Quincy High, they would take trolleys. And those and I looked up the trolley routes. The trolleys followed like Route 28, Route 37, Route 18, the main roads through the South Shore to Brockton. And it turns out, if you plot out a map today, most of the South Shore Bar Pizza joints are along those major thoroughfares. So my theory is, and it's not totally proven, but it's very solid based on evidence, again, not proven, but solid, that basically when South Shore Bar Pizza emerged in Brockton, all the little neighborhood dive bars and taverns along those trolley routes started making South Shore Bar Pizza. So to this day, the main corridors of South Shore Bar Pizza are from Brockton to Quincy along those travel corridors. You look at today, Route 37, Route 18, Route 28, that's where most of the bar pizza joints are. Now they've since split off. There's a lot of bar pizza south of Brockton, east and west. You can go out to Poopsies and Pembroke, kind of off the beaten path in terms of the old travel corridors. But for the most part, the heart of South Shore Bar Pizza country is those travel corridors along the trolley routes between Brockton and Quincy. And by the way, it makes sense too, kind of economically. Brockton was the shoemaking capital of America up until the 1970s. The Brockton High School football team used to be called the Shoemen before they were the Boxers. I think it was up until the 70s. And Quincy, of course, was a great shipbuilding town. These are old blue-collar working-class towns. So guys went out, wanted a couple beers, a couple shots of Jack, whatever they wanted, and they wanted something cheap to eat, and bar pizza filled the void. So this isn't proven. I don't have all the evidence yet, but the evidence is there that this is how kind of bar pizza developed between these two big working class cities along these old trolley routes. So that's kind of my theory, and I have nothing yet to kind of really refute that theory at this point.
So now you mentioned earlier there's a couple different types of South Shore Bar Pizza, whether
Yep.
Maybe Venus and Whitman's a little different than Alumni in Quincy, but here's a different one that I had heard of just for the first time. Modern Israeli cuisine for the first time made a wood-fired South Shore Bar Pizza.
Yeah. So actually, that came about. There's a chef, Avi Shemtov, at Simca Restaurant in Sharon. He's actually a client of mine, and he's a great chef, and we've done a lot of work together. But he grew up in Sharon. His business, he runs Chubby Chickpea food truck out of Canton. so he's well versed in social bar pizza. So last week he did an event doing wood, and he has a wood oven in his restaurant Simcoe where he usually cooks pita bread. But we got some social bar pizza pans, the old school, steel pans, donated to the event by Braintree Brew House in Braintree, of course. And he did wood-fired social bar pizza. It was kind of a one-off thing, but who knows? Why couldn't you do? There's no reason you couldn't do wood-fired bar pizza. But it was a great event. Went well. People liked it, and he did a little more chef-driven versions. I know bar pizza was kind of a working class thing, but Avi Shemtov did kind of a little bit more of a chef-driven version of bar pizza, and it was really cool. It was a good event.
So, what's that, Tim? Okay, I'll go.
No, go ahead.
I want to ask you something that's got nothing to do with bar pizza, but since you are in the restaurant business, reviewing restaurants and everything, where do you see the restaurants now because of COVID and everything? Where do you see restaurants 6 months from now?
Total disaster.
A lot of them, or?
Total disaster. This is going to be a disaster of biblical proportions, unfortunately. But I expect 30, 40, 50% of known restaurants not to reopen, not to be able to, not to do well. And it didn't have to happen. I don't want to get political here, but they didn't need to shut down restaurants. 2 weeks before this all happened, people were already deciding on their own out of fear or whatever not to go out. Restaurants were already scaling back. And this was they really did a number on the restaurant industry. And a lot of industries have suffered through this, but there's no way. A lot of these places just can't run. You can't, go 2 or 3 months with no revenue and hope to keep open. People don't realize most restaurants are mom and pop operations. These are working people who aren't making a lot of money. They're just
they live week to week.
They live week to week like a lot of us do, and so to shut them down for months on end. It's really disastrous. And the irony of all this, guys, is what's going to happen. These restaurants that don't reopen, there's going to be a lot of empty restaurant spots, a lot of empty real estate. And who's going to swoop in and take out the mom and pops? The big corporate chains that had cash reserves that can afford to come in. They're going to get pennies on the dollar for the real estate. And instead of seeing mom and pop pizza joint, now you're going to see a Chipotle or a Popeye's chicken or whatever. And then not there's anything wrong with those eateries. I like Popeye's chicken, but you're going to see the big chains come in and swoop up mom and pop spaces for pennies on the dollar, and that's really a shame. And from my perspective, it didn't have to be this way. The government totally overstepped its bounds, totally destroyed mom and pop businesses with, by the way, no legal authority to do so. They didn't have to do it. The market was going to figure it out. If you didn't want to open, restaurants didn't have to open. If they wanted to open, they could have opened. If you didn't want to go out to eat, you didn't have to go out to eat. You could have made the decision yourself as an adult. And already restaurants are scaling back. They're already seeing the numbers go down. They were going to cut staff. They were going to reduce what they were buying. They were going to make decisions based on what the market was telling them. And instead, the government came in and just destroyed these people. And most are never going to recover. And I hope the politicians who made these terrible decisions pay a political price, because they destroyed, in this state alone, hundreds of thousands of lives and tens of thousands of businesses. And it didn't have to be this way. And they deserve this. They deserve to be voted out of office for this complete disaster. And I'm not happy about it. And I can tell you this. A lot of businesses are putting on a good face, but I can tell you 90% of the business owners I know are angry beyond belief that they had this happen to them by the government. And it didn't have to be this way. A terrible disaster. Terrible disaster.
People that own restaurants in Boston, and they say they have to open 50%. They can't do it.
They can't do it.
And Stella's already said they're not opening.
I know. It's funny. I saw Evan Doolittle from Stella. I saw him at Alba and Quincy a couple of weeks ago. Alba is a great restaurant. I saw Evan there right before he announced the shutdown. I was a food writer at the Boston Herald for 20 years. I've been very lucky to meet a lot of great chefs around Boston. And, now Evan ran right across from the cathedral in the South End, ran a great restaurant, great food, well-known chef, very, a decorated chef, great food. And he's out looking for work right now because the government put him out of business. Keep in mind, the virus obviously impacted things, but the virus didn't put anyone out of business. The government put people out of business. And I can just tell you this, the restaurateurs are angry at what happened to them. It didn't have to be this way.
Yeah. Tim, he's got a call in a few minutes, so you have any questions? Any last questions?
No, but when I signed up for the show, you promised me you wouldn't be political, Alex.
I'm not.
No, I have nothing further.
Well, before you go, you also do cold hard football facts, right?
Well, yeah, not anymore. I sold that
Not
several
anymore?
years ago. But yeah, I covered the NFL for many years. I had
Okay.
a great run covering football. I still do a lot of stats analysis.
Well, I need your take on Tom Brady.
Well, I'll tell you what, Alex. I bought season tickets for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year.
Did you really?
So that's my take. With Alex Cassar from Braintree Brew House,
Yeah.
one of the great alumni-style bar pizza joints on the South Shore. The Patriots it's all Brady. Belichick will go down in history with a losing record without Tom Brady. His career record without Tom Brady was 42-58. People don't realize that. 100 games as a coach, a career for most coaches. Bill Belichick's record before Tom Brady was 42-58. Since then, he became the greatest coach who ever lived. The Patriots will probably be lucky to win 7 games this year. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl.
Who's going to be the Patriots quarterback?
Looks like Jarrett Stidham right now, unless they make some sort of dramatic change. But that's it. You know, that's what they got. But, guys, the NFL is very simple. So at Cold Hard Football Facts, when I had it, we invented 22 NFL statistics. I invented 22 stats, each of which have a direct correlation to winning football games, okay? We statistically deciphered the entire history of the NFL. And it comes down to one thing. Do you have a good quarterback or don't you? It's really that simple. The NFL is all about one player. It's all about the quarterbacks. Now, obviously, you need other good players at different positions, but you can't win consistently without a good quarterback. And the reason the Patriots were the winningest franchise in the history of football over the last 20 years is because they had the greatest quarterback in the history of football. It's simple as that. And I think it takes them years and years and years to recover from getting rid of Tom Brady. They should have let him die on the shield on the field at Gillette, and they didn't. And they're going to suffer for it. Sorry, Patriots fans, but that's how the NFL works.
And that has nothing to do with the Pizza Boys, but
Well, you asked.
So, Tim, when are we going to get back out there and have some real pizza?
Hopefully next time you guys see us, we'll at least be outdoors at a restaurant, you know, at minimum. But, you know, hopefully that doesn't last long and we can get inside and start, you know, getting back in the kitchen and showing people some of the great food that's being put out around the South Shore.
So you, as a selectman, have a meeting in just a few minutes just for that reason, I understand.
Yeah, I can only speak for Abington, but between the health agent, the police chief, the fire chief, the town manager, the board of selectmen, we're all going to make it as easy as possible for restaurants to open up, hopefully on Monday, with the least amount of restrictions that we can. As far as the red tape for the towns go,
All right. Well, looks like we lost that signal. Kerry, thank you very much for joining us.
All right, Alex. All right, Jim. I appreciate the time, guys.
And maybe when we can get into a restaurant, you're up in this area, we'll actually go into a bar and have some beer and pizza.
Love to hang out. I appreciate the time, guys.
All right. Thank you.
All right, talk to you.
Yeah.